Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 20 of The Great Jahy Will Not Be Defeated. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. So last we left off, the big conflict between the Dark Lord and her sister was essentially resolved, and I guess at this point, I'm not sure what this last episode could possibly be about aside from just wrapping everything up, It's either just little character interaction stuff, or it's Jahy, starting that restaurant if she actually was serious about that. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell what's actually going to happen, but I get the feeling that, I guess things will just sort of return to a status quo, because, now that this whole conflict has been resolved, I don't know if there's any real need to bring back the Dark Realm. Sure, Jahy might like that for her own personal reasons, but I feel like she's come to the understanding that this place is much of a home for her as the Dark Realm had been. Therefore, why bother leaving? Although I guess she really is pursuing her own restaurant, which I guess that's nice, She seems to have found her passion for something. Although it seems like the boss sort of took the initiative to plan this party without Jahy really going through any formal setup. A case in point, I guess. Yeah, she hadn't really planned on actually making her own restaurant. Alright, so I guess that's the crux of the episode then. It's, kind of a bittersweet thing to leave and strike out on your own, even if it is ultimately indicative of personal growth. Because, at the start of the series, Jahy certainly wouldn't have been the type of person who'd be enterprising enough to manage a business and take care of everything by herself. But having spent so much time in the human world, I guess she certainly has, learned the virtue of hard work to a degree, So, I feel like even if Jahy does leave and start her own restaurant, it's not like it has to be goodbye. Presumably she's still going to live in the landlord's property, and having done that, it's not like she has to stray far from the others. It is interesting that Jahy's putting up a cold front saying, it's not like I'm going to miss this place. And I think we all know darn well that that's precisely the opposite. Even when things became more complicated with Kyoko working there and Jahy sort of having to wrangle her by virtue of being more experienced, even that is probably something that Jahy reflects on fondly. And I can kind of relate in a way, because I've had some real crap jobs, and knowing how bad they were at the time, I can't help but look back on them fondly in a certain light. It's not like I would necessarily go back, but there were aspects of it that weren't all bad. Oh dear. So I guess Jahy sent, oh boy. See, this is what happens when you send your more successful friend to scope out real estate. You get 20 million yen properties, which, look, Jahy's struggling with rent, okay? You have to start small. And, I guess, it was nice of Drews to suggest, this giant cathedral and everything, but, I feel like maybe Jahy would be better off starting out with, a stall, something very small. Something where, you don't have to pay much for overhead. Now, I'm certainly not known for my business acumen or anything, but I do know that, you have a certain degree of overhead, things that you need to pay, and you want your income to be more than that. So, I don't know. I get the feeling that Jahy's gonna get a bit of a crash course in business because, you can make a lot of money nominally, a lot of gross income, but if you have a lot of costs that you need to pay, then, it all kind of goes out the window, you know? And, there have been episodes where Jahy sort of displays her lack of expertise with money. What another excellent find, just going through the store, buying everything that catches her eye. It's not a good strategy, And I suppose it's not like Jahy couldn't learn either, she has become competent in her own domain. Although, I feel like maybe Jahy would, struggle a bit with customer service, if she doesn't have a boss to wrangle her. Okay. So... wow. Alright, so I guess Drozh's reaping all the rewards of that new restaurant, and Jahy's just sort of none the wiser. And I guess now, since we have to get it out of the way, this is a traditional festival episode, perhaps? This is kind of interesting. We don't really have, a good timeline for how long Jahy's been here, but if this is the first time she's seen a festival like this, then, that would be a neat little thing. It is interesting that Kokuro's the one showing her about this whole thing. Because, I guess, I've got fond memories of, festivals and things like that, locally, and... oh, okay. I guess Kokuro's not gonna show her around or anything. I mean, surely she'll spend time with her friends and all that, right? But, I guess I was kind of hoping Kokuro would, explain things a little bit more, sort of walk Jahy through the process. Oh, Jahy. What a stray cat mentality, thinking ooh, juice, that would be nice, but oh, it's just juice. Oh, okay. So Jahy's getting involved in a contest for kids. That's hardly fair for someone with an adult mind and intellect. Man, Jahy's absolutely shameless to just sort of nonchalantly say oh, I wouldn't mind checking this thing out, as if she isn't absolutely interested now. That's not really how you should treat your friends, but, I guess old habits die hard. So there was mention of carrying a shrine, and I feel like Jahy's sort of assuming that she isn't going to be put to work somehow. I don't know exactly what this is referring to, but something tells me Jahy's in for more work than she is necessarily hoping for. Now, unfortunately, it seems like Jahy's ego might get the better of her. Because, sure, these kids are teasing her and all that, and Kokuro's standing up to her, but I feel like, it would not behoove Jahy to fight with kids, And I suppose at least Jahy is upset on behalf of Kokuro for having been insulted, but, I guess at least she's directing her energy in a more constructive manner. It's time to do good in the competition rather than pick on some kids. So this is interesting that Jahy's struggling with it. I guess it kind of makes sense given her diminutive stature, but if this is a competition for children, I feel like transforming would invite scrutiny. I suppose there is always time for one more gag about the police arresting Jahy. That'd be kind of funny. I wonder if the boss and the landlord are going to say anything about this. Everyone's saying like, oh, Jahy, she's just like taking part in the festival. Wow. A lot of people seem to recognize Jahy, which is interesting. Because, I guess I didn't imagine she would have become a pillar of the community, but I guess she sort of has. Not that, like, everyone relies on her or anything, but I guess people just kind of know her. It would make sense, if she's a waitress at, like, a popular little restaurant that a lot of people go to, probably on a regular basis. So I guess that's it then. And the question is, when does Jahy get her reward? Probably not right away, but, well, I take that back. Maybe it is happening now. I guess I expected Jahy to duke it out with those kids, but, I suppose not. Wow, so Jahy was selected. That is very nice, Because I guess in a weird sort of way, Jahy's getting all this admiration and stuff like that. Stuff that she hasn't really had since the Dark Realm was destroyed. And, it's not exactly the same. It's not people worshipping her out of fear. It's more like people celebrating her out of camaraderie. And I feel like if you had to pick between the two, the latter is the best in the long run, Although, the landlord does raise a good point, Jahy is not a kid. She maybe shouldn't be doing this, but what would you achieve by raining on her parade? It would really just ruin things for everyone. And I guess, just to really demonstrate how much Jahy has grown, she's willing to share the prize with others. Ah, boy. I guess this was to be expected. A prize for children doesn't hold the same appeal to an adult, which Jahy nominally is. Okay, so maybe this is an episode where we're just sort of following up with everyone, because we haven't seen Sarva since that business with Sue. And she realizes she failed. And, now's the time to intervene, perhaps, as Jahy's carrying this shrine. Although it seems like Sarva was waylaid by the boss and therefore sort of defeated before the fight could really begin. I feel like the boss's kind nature, however, will just sort of bring Sarva into the fold, because, Sarva has just sort of been lingering on the periphery, attempting to cause trouble and not really succeeding. But, it's not like Sarva's a bad person or anything. And I feel like if anyone's able to sort of integrate Sarva into the group, it would be the boss. I mean, just like that, the boss is like, hey, let's enjoy the festival. You can hang out with us. So almost immediately, she's getting right into it, which I guess that's nice. She certainly was very zealous on overthrowing Jahy. even if she had no real aptitude for it, so... I guess it's good that she's putting her zeal and her energy into something, maybe not more productive, but probably better for her health in the long run. Oh dear. So I guess it makes sense that Sarva would be rather afraid of the landlord considering what she had done before. Although it seems like Sarva might be here just in time to fill in for a drummer. Although, if the drumming in question is what I think it is, like taiko drumming, then I feel like there are some certain specialist skills involved here, but I suppose if the boss is going to look at Sarva like that, then she can't really refuse, Maybe it isn't so bad, because at least Sarva's learning that the landlord isn't so bad after all, It's really only Jahy that she butts heads with, and even then only on the topic of rent, which... Unfortunately, there hasn't been a big rent showdown recently. I wouldn't mind another one just for the fun of it. So not to claim that taiko drumming is easy or anything, but it seems like Sarva is picking it up rather naturally, which... It is nice, there is something fun about engaging in cultural activities like this. Even if you're not super into the culture and anything, just sometimes collaborative activities like this are fun. And I guess, both of the sisters have seemed to have charmed Sarva, so I feel like even if there is some fallout after this, even if Sarva and Jahy do fight again, I feel like everyone's just going to be stuck with her now. Things are too good to just go away entirely. Alright, so I guess Sarva's just volunteering for everything, regardless of what it is. And, whoa, buddy, that's a skimpy costume, but I guess, Sarva isn't particular, it's just fun. Although this strikes me as far more of a Brazilian tradition than Japanese. Well, I guess it doesn't matter too much ultimately. Okay, so there we have it. Just like that, all this fun cultural stuff has immediately made Sarva forget about Jahy and, what she really intended to do in the first place. But now that she is face to face with Jahy, can she actually start causing a problem? I feel like, she probably won't. She's claiming that, it's here, this is the time, I can do it, but... I feel like she ultimately can't bring herself to ruin the festival, right? Oh, it's not even that, it's just the embarrassment of the outfit. Okay. I was gonna say, at least Jahy doesn't remember her name, so, there's something to being caught in that outfit, but, I guess it doesn't matter. Sarva's gonna go for it anyways, even if it may ruin the festival. I mean, surely she wouldn't, right? She has the presence of mind to know that, this is fun and everything. Alright, so I guess, no fight. Probably for the best, really. It would be a real shame to ruin a nice festival where everyone's having fun, and where, Sarva and Jahy, two outsiders, are having a lot of fun. And I feel like, after everything, now that it's nighttime, I feel like they're probably gonna have, fireworks, It's maybe not traditional, per se, but it is sort of, common or routine. Well, maybe it is a tradition. That's probably the better word for what I was thinking of. I guess I can only imagine that everyone will sort of watch the fireworks together, right? Kyoko, the Demon Lord, Kyoko, Jahy, the sisters, Sarva, Druj. It would just make sense, right? Everyone seems to be seeing Jahy walk somewhere. I get the feeling they're all gonna kind of congregate together and just, enjoy the spectacle of the fireworks. I mean, I am just assuming it's fireworks. What else would you do this late at night, sort of gathering on a hill like this? But, I don't know. I think it's a fair assumption. It is interesting that everyone's here for Jahy. For better or for worse. Though it seems like, Sarva was neatly drowned out by everyone just wanting to hang out with their friend. So I guess the question now is, what do you do? We're sort of reaching the end of this, and, there hasn't really been anything going on. I feel like Jahy at this point, she may not, make a wish on the fireworks or anything. They're not shooting stars, but I feel like, if anything else, this would be just a nice little memory to have. All the important people in her life are together watching the fireworks with her. I don't know. She's probably going to make a resolution that, hey, we should do this again next year. Something like that. That's interesting that the boss would claim these fireworks are the prettiest they've ever been. And I guess that's kind of a byproduct of being here with so many good friends, being here with Jahy and all the friends she's made along the way, and the Demon Lord and her sister who have quashed their feud. I feel like that, if nothing else, would lend to the atmosphere. And there we have it, I guess. Jahy, at this point, just wants to stay in the human world. At this point, the Dark Realm's kind of forgotten. It's no longer needed, and despite it being emblazoned on her shirt, restore the Dark Realm. Do you really need to go back when everything you could possibly care about is right here? Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.